I call the East Brunswick Township Council Agenda Action Meeting for June 24, 2019 to order. Please everybody rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Perry, please call the roll.
Councilman McAvoy.
Here.
Councilman Spadafino.
Here.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
Here.
Councilman Wendell.
Here.
Council President Stanley.
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as required under Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, specifying the time, date, and location, and to the extent known, the agenda, by posting a copy on the Municipal Building Public Notice Bulletin Board located in the main lobby, providing a copy to the Home News Tribune and Sentinel newspapers, posting a copy on the Township's website, and by filing a copy in the office of the Township Clerk in accordance with the certification which will be entered in the minutes.
Thank you. Tonight, to start off, I'd like to call up our Executive Director for the Redevelopment Agency, Mr. Michael Hughes, to come up and give an update to the council.
Sure. Council President, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I appreciate you giving me an opportunity this evening to update both you all and members of the general public with respect to redevelopment here in the township. Last I was here 5 weeks ago, presented an overview and tried to just capsule out some of what we've been able to do in the first 5 months of the redevelopment agency, went over the different bodies that have jurisdiction over it, and then the scope of each of their tasks. Tonight, I plan on providing an update of the last 5 weeks, which have seen actually a great deal of movement. With respect to the properties I'll go over, I'll start with the sites that you're going to see or take action on the soonest, and then I will go from there chronologically. First is 39 Edgeboro Road, which we went over the concept plan at last council meeting. So there's a financial agreement on the docket for tonight's agenda, I believe, in front of you all, that I know that Township Attorney Baker has been negotiating and working on, and I think he's going to be providing an update to the specifics of that when that ordinance appears on your agenda. With that, the township will hope to execute, I believe, the financial agreement, and then I know that the property owners of that site have a very aggressive construction schedule, and they were looking to get started probably yesterday, so that you're going to see movement on very, very quickly. Next is the 110 Tice's property. That has been the nexus of a lot of movement and momentum in the last 5 weeks. We expect site plans to be done and turned in on that site probably within the next 15 to 18 days, I'm going to say. We're hoping for an August meeting at the planning board level. Some of the delay in that from the last council meeting to now is just some wetlands mitigation and some regulatory requirements that are going to be installed in the upper right-hand corner of the property. If you're looking at it from Tice's Lane, there was originally going to be a detention basin. They've got to do some other regulatory work and install some underground systems there because of the wetlands designation. With that, though, I am happy to report that there was a piece of land that was going to be deeded back to the township that would total around 6 acres as a result of meetings going over some of their changes to the site plan, and with respect to a potential redevelopment agreement, I'm happy to report that that's turned from 6 acres to 8 and change, honestly, about 8 1/4 right now at the 110 Tice's property. Now, also, while they're going to submit their site plans in the next 15 to 18 days, we're aiming for an August planning board hearing. What happens in between, and the reason for that lag time, is for our township engineering staff and consultants to go over their plan and ensure conformance with all codes, regulations, and with the redevelopment plan that's in effect at that property. And then as well, we're also going to need our township redevelopment planner, Fran Reiner from DMR Architects, to take a look at the site plan for that and to ensure its consistency with the redevelopment plan that was passed by council and the planning board. Next is the Ace Auto Wreckers property on Harts Lane. That's being studied as we speak by the aforementioned Township planner from DMR Architects. That study should be at planning board level shortly. I don't have their schedule off of the top of my head, but I would expect that right around the same time as 110 Tice's hearing, maybe even the meeting before. Then we get to areas 2A and 3A, which I know are the most talked about here. We have meetings every 3 weeks to go over a potential redevelopment agreement with the conditional redeveloper of that site. The 90 days of exclusivity is wearing down, and I think probably at this week or last week, that 90-day window had closed. We still have every indication to continue negotiating in good faith with them, and this is a third of $1 billion project, so it's very complex. There's a lot of moving parts. I'm happy to report that there's a lot of areas of agreement. Some outstanding issues that I know the township has on their plate. We want to make sure that there is an established benchmark of deliverables and progress reports that'll come to council and come to the redevelopment agency, so you have from the developer what their status is in a public document. Secondarily, we have questions and want to make sure the township's protected at the phasing perspective of any potential development going on there. There's also a strong desire from the township's perspective to put an end to the litigation that's on some of the properties there. So we want to make sure that's rectified in the redevelopment agreement, and we have a clear strategy with the developer moving forward. And then lastly, we continue to pass around updated copies of the renderings and master plans for that site. Comments are received by the redevelopment agency on a weekly basis from committee members. We just had another pass-through last Monday. We have another meeting with the redeveloper and the redeveloper's attorney occurring on Thursday of this week. And so that'll move forward. I would be remiss if I didn't mention with the 110 Tice's property while I was going over some procedural things in the timeline. Demolition, the indoor demolition, I reported on last meeting would be beginning soon. I'm happy to report that that's completed. All of the indoor demo is completely done at 110. The outdoor demolition at 110 Tice's is actually beginning this week. You'll see there's some equipment already on the site, and they'll be trucking some more in, and then the claw will be there taking down that building. That'll be about a 2 to 3 week demolition process. There's still a little bit of abatement that has to be done during demolition, so it's not a site that you can really have easy access to see, but you'll definitely see passing on Tice's Lane that building's going to be down. I won't say by your next council meeting, but certainly 2 council meetings from now that building will no longer exist.
If I just
Sure.
want to clarify, it'll be on the ground in a big pile of rubble.
Yeah.
It probably will take the better part of a couple of months to clean the entire site and dig out all the foundations and everything else, but you'll see drastic changes on that site over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, and some of that is just some of the machinery that was in that site. I mean, the foundations of those machines goes 6 to 8 feet in the ground over there from when it was built. So it's a heavy demolition job. But the outdoor structure of the building will be gone before you know it. So I think I've gone over the main 4 redevelopment areas. To give you a sense of the path ahead, it's obviously our top priorities, again, a redevelopers agreement done and complete with 110 Tice's now that we have their confirmed site plan. Essentially, they're cleaning some stuff up before they submit to planning board. Those conversations in earnest take place every 2 weeks with their attorneys and our redevelopment agency staff and attorneys. Same goes with River. We're on an every 2 week schedule, turning back copies of the redevelopers agreement to get that squared away. And then, from a redevelopment agency perspective, we want to just increase our website. We want to get a more interactive portal where residents and even, elected officials can see the progress a little more clearly. We can put some of my PowerPoints up on the site and have, we're very good at, I think, a lot of high-touch methods of outreach. I know the mayor hosts town halls. We had a facilitated workshop over at the Community Arts Center. We want to pair some of those high-touch methods with high-tech, and I shouldn't really even call a website high-tech, but we want to have a repository where if someone, has an inkling to do some desktop research at 3 in the morning, they can get some information at the East Brunswick website. With that, I will stop my portion, and I'll entertain questions from council members, or I'll let Mayor Cohen have something to say.
Well, first I want to thank you, as always, to keep us all updated on what's going on with redevelopment. Fortunately, it's a moving process, and each time you come here, there is movement, and that's important. But two things that also occurred in the last really couple weeks that I think are worth noting, and one of the main things you wanted to accomplish with redevelopment, besides just redeveloping properties that are fallen into disrepair, is to stimulate the idea that as you improve the product that's on Route 18, that it would hopefully work as a snowball for other properties. And so recently this week we had the owners of Sunny Palace come in to the office, and they're looking to do something with their property, and they'd actually like to, and will be meeting with the redevelopment agency in order to see if through redevelopment and through the laws and the opportunities that are available through that mechanism, that maybe they could do something to upgrade that property. And so if we start seeing, and that's before we've done anything, but that was the point. Once you start seeing improvement, improvement begets more improvement, and so the goal is to go to the highest common denominator on the highway and not to the lowest. So without doing anything, to see that that's already started is a good sign that we're in the right direction. And just an interesting point that I have heard from realtor friends in the community, and that is that there's pretty much a halt on sales in Cross Point right now. Wow. Because most people that live there are recognizing that the likelihood of the community around it being upgraded has actually caused them to halt any sales. You can't find anything there because most people there believe that the values of their properties are actually going to go up. So that's those are all good signs.
Yes.
Anyone else on council have any questions? Councilwoman Sullivan?
I just have one question. The 2A and 3A sites, I know a lot of residents are anxious for it to start, and I know after it goes through everything and they sign the agreement and we're ready to go, when do you think the first, I know you have to, when will you think the first demolition will be? I mean, no one's holding you to it, but that's what the residents are anxious about.
Jim, you want
You
to
want me
say?
to?
Yeah.
I'll speak from experience on this side, not from what actually the developers said to us, but my expectation is that you'll see demolition occur before you see a lot of work moving forward, but as we call it, it's addition by subtraction in our business. Taking down bad assets is better than having bad assets sitting there. My expectation is that the developer, once we come to an agreement, will be under contract on the properties at least in the 3A section, ideally within a 6-month period of time, and be looking to demo them properties immediately once he takes possession of them. I think our expectation is that we would expect to see some progress in a, not in a demolition fashion, but in a productive standpoint where they're starting to put work in the ground, probably springtime next year.
Yeah, and I would say the difference to dovetail onto Jim's point is where, with the 110 Tices property, demolition is a real sign of things to come. The engineering work's been complete for that side in terms of the design, and there was tenants in that building. I mean, there was that building wasn't completely vacant. So I would say that demolition would probably occur sooner rather than later, but I would caution reading too much into that because those buildings are vacant. There's no sense really from a developer standpoint in keeping, a structure that might be deemed unsafe in some instances standing up. So there'll be an impetus to get them down, but there's still going to need to be engineering and design work that would go into those properties where 110 is kind of the reverse of that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Hughes, for that thorough review, because it covered my questions, as always. However, with regard to 110 Tices, the owner of that property is the developer?
Yes.
And has that owner signed on as a legal developer versus an unconditional developer?
Well, they were conditionally designated by the council. They might have, I believe, back in 2018, at the end of 2018. So their 90-day window had
Right.
actually closed. We continued to negotiate in good faith, and we're reaching a point now where we think we're relatively close to having them signed.
So once that is signed on the solid line, we talked about that at our last meeting, and you have a bona fide developer, that's when the August date of an actual plan will be submitted?
We're trying to move on parallel tracks as much as we can. My dream scenario would have that redevelopment agreement be signed prior to the planning board hearing, but I think we're going to try to get that in front of the planning board before the redevelopment agreement's signed, if we can.
And when I've looked at the redevelopment agency's architectural design of that property, that could be radically altered by the developer?
Anything's possible, but I can tell you that we've had meetings with the developer, and they don't plan on seeking any bulk variances. There's one issue with a very small setback where we're talking about going from 25 to 24, something very minor like that. But in terms of the overall aesthetic and the plan and the vision that's in that redevelopment plan, in all of our meetings with 110 Tice's and Garden Homes, the conditional redeveloper for that site, we've expressed somewhat of an inflexibility to pass bulk variances or a ton of variances at the land use level to radically alter that redevelopment plan. They've signed on and they've been on board every single one of our meetings and renderings they've said to us. It consistently goes with the vision of the redevelopment plan and the overall aesthetic and look that was passed and agreed upon by this governing body and the planning board.
And that's in and around 500 units?
Yes.
Okay. With regard to Ace Auto, that plan has not been submitted yet either to the planning board?
That plan is not. The first step is having the study re-examined by the township redevelopment planner to make sure that that area fits within the strictures of redevelopment law to be classified as an area in need of redevelopment. To the layperson, it's very obvious that it probably would, but we've got to go through the the planning level for that. And then after that, once a designation is made, we act upon the planner's recommendations and findings. Then we would begin to examine a plan for that property at the land use level.
And with regard to 2A and 3A, again, a conditional developer, again, your professionalism, no red flags have gone up that say that they're not going to go from conditional developer to developer.
No, I'm always hesitant to say there could be a red flag at the 11th hour. There were when I was counsel on a number of things, so I will remain cautiously optimistic on everything. I think the plan that was acted upon by the redevelopment agency is very solid, very defensible, and I have every expectation that they will be sticking to that.
Because once that conditional developer becomes a developer, then with regard to questions from neighbors, it'll be full steam ahead.
For sure, and that's why, it's time, it takes a little time to go through it in a thoughtful, I think, deliberative process.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hughes. Council President.
If I may, just to kind of piggyback on a few things that Councilman McAvoy mentioned, and just to give you some assurances, as far as 110 Tice's, every meeting we've had with that developer comes back to the fact that we wrote a very, very strong and defensible and tight redevelopment plan that was passed by this governing body several months ago, if not a year ago. And to that point, some of the things that are taking a little bit more time are the fact that this developer is now reading the fine print, per se, and realizing that he's got to make space for charging stations, and he's got to make space for Uber and Lyft pickup areas, and those types of things that were written into that redevelopment plan. So it's caused him to tweak his plan a little bit, but the overall plan has not really changed from anything that was presented to us that is at all markedly different from what was proposed originally. Everything that's on there has only changed slightly. Everything's not changed slightly, but the changes on there are slight. and nothing that changes the overall design or impact of that plan as it was originally proposed to this agency with the original redevelopment plan. So, I mean, I'm happy for the consistency. I'm happy that the developer is now seeing the finer points of this plan and making certain that he meets all the criteria of the redevelopment plan. We've spoken in several meetings about not wanting any variances when this plan comes before the planning board. And those variances are variances from the redevelopment plan, not variances, in a grand scheme of things, but what would he be requesting a variance from in regard to the redevelopment plan? And as Mr. Hughes indicated, they're going to be very, very minor and few. So it should be something that emulates and exactly, represents what was approved by the planning board, the redevelopment agency, and this governing body. So I'm happy that plan's moving forward. The only changes are he's deeding more property to the town. That's one of the big changes. So.
And if I may, Councilman Wendell, if there are changes, which we saw with the Summerhill, when Summerhill was finalized, and I do believe the number was 72 changes, that takes time. And if that takes time, Mr. Hughes, that's great. So if you have tweaks and modifications and things that you want, that the community wants, and therefore sends it back to us for approval, so be it.
Sure. That's the beauty of, we spent a lot of time in the beginning on a lot of these things, and I think we're getting it right. And I'd just like to thank Mr. Hughes for all the time he's put in the past 6 months since he stepped into this role. Makes my life easier, and I appreciate that. Being the boots on the ground, the guy who's a pain in the neck to every one of these developers, calling them on a daily basis, I thank you for your time.
That's a role I play quite well.
As I know.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
And if I may say, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
On your,
Thank you.
Mr. Hughes is going to be a father.
I appreciate that.
He's got a little baby boy coming at the end of the year.
Tax rate before the end of the
Now it's public, beyond Facebook.
Yeah, it was great.
Additional tax break?
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Michael. Moving on to the public hearing, can I get a motion for ordinance 19-17 of the Township of East Brunswick, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 75 of the Township Code of the Township of East Brunswick entitled Construction Codes, Uniform Fees, Section 75-3, Fee, Disposition of Monies?
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Councilman Wendell. Can I get a
Second.
second by Councilwoman Sullivan? Want to open this to the public? If anyone from the public have anything to state regarding this ordinance and this ordinance only, please come forward. Seeing none, closing the public portion. Any discussion on council? Councilman McAvoy? Sorry?
I know there's a couple of good-looking guys.
There's this difference, though. I guess we all look the same sitting down.
This is an ordinance that we had a lengthy discussion about at our last
week.
meeting.
Yes.
I recall Councilman Spadafino reviewing this thoroughly, and just making sure that this is
Yes.
everything,
Same as
that nothing
Nothing
was
has changed.
crossed out and add. This is, Mr. Baker, it's all the same as,
It's what was published.
thank you.
Correct, Nanette?
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you, Council President.
Ms. Perry, can you please call the roll?
Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Wendell?
Yes.
Council President Stanley?
Yes. Moving forward with the reports from Mayor today.
Thank you, Council President. First, I'd like to, I know it's on your schedule and our agenda for this evening, but I would like to formally congratulate Lieutenant Frank Lasacco, who will be coming after your vote, our new Chief of Police effective August 1st of this year. He inherits an excellent police department. We expect that it should stay that way and get even better. And we can only wish you the most success possible in your future endeavors as chief. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to formally express our gratitude, my gratitude, hopefully the council's, also to Chief Conroy for his years of service to the township and for making the police department the department that is the envy of all of Middlesex County. We also want to remind people we have a program that we're starting for the first time this summer, Summer Stage Under the Stars, which is our version of Plays in the Park. They have 50 years on us, so we have to give us a little bit of a chance to try to get the kinks out of the system, but we're going to be putting on Footloose as a pilot. It's going to be the last Thursday, Friday, Saturday of July, and the first Thursday, Friday, Saturday night in August. And we just hope that everybody will come out and enjoy. You can go on to the Playhouse 22 website and reserve tickets, which is something that you actually can't do at Playhouse, that you have to go in person to buy tickets. You'll still be able to go in person and buy the tickets here too, but you can order them in advance. We also have our 4th of July program coming up the 4th of July, and with fireworks and an entire day's worth of events. So again, open to the public, and we would like everybody to get out there. And finally, I'd like to remind people, especially those who are seniors, about the Senior Freeze program. It's something that I always like to bring up, especially as we get to the time of year when new tax bills go out and everyone starts to freak out about their tax bill. But for seniors who make the value changes each year, but right now I believe it's about $87,000 as your family income. If you make that or under, you can apply for a senior freeze, which will cap your taxes at the age, anybody over 65. Once you're capped, they will no longer be charged anything above that. You will have to pay the taxes, but the state then reimburses you the difference. And according to the budget plan as it's presented so far in the state legislature, it looks like every intention is to keep that program fully funded. So I encourage any senior that meets those criterion to call the township, and we will help them through that process. I think that is it, Mr. Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. From our town administrator?
Yes, I just want to give an update on the tables for the room. We're still searching for the right fit that would meet the needs of the council, the planning board, zoning board, and the municipal court. I didn't want you to think that we forgot about it, so I just wanted to give you an update on that. Second, I wanted to wish Council President Sterling Stanley a happy birthday today, and many more.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm the youngest councilman.
Come on.
Thank you, Council President. I've got some sad news for us. East Brunswick lost one of its finest this past weekend, Jim Newmeyer, who some of the old-timers up here on the council, and maybe Lieutenant Locascio, will remember him. He was one of East Brunswick's first full-time police officers. If you look at the black and white photos out in the hall, you'll see 1950, 53, and 54. He's the tall, handsome guy with a square head, smiling in the middle of the pictures. He rose from patrolman all the way up to be deputy chief, and he was part of the Newmeyer family that occupied almost an entire street in my neighborhood. I grew up with some of his kids and with his nieces and nephews. He was a consummate professional. It went from him keeping us out of trouble when we were kids to when he was deputy chief and I was a councilman negotiating budget items with him. He was a consummate professional and a policeman's policeman and a true old school gentleman, and my condolences to his wife and his 5 daughters. Yeah, 5 daughters.
Thank you. Thank you. Any report from our clerk?
Yes, I've been asked to remind residents about yard sale signs. This is the season. Please remember that yard sale signs are not to be posted to poles. There to be a freestanding sign similar to like a political sign and in the ground, and they need to be removed at least 2 days after the yard sale.
Thank you, thank you. Any reports from our council members?
Heard everything from
Yes.
Mr. Hughes. I got nothing.
Seeing none, I'm going to close that portion. Moving on to the public portion. I want to remind everybody, please, if you're going to make a statement, you can come up to the podium. Please state your name and address, and limit your comments to 5 minutes, and address all comments to the chair. Thank you. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public portion. Moving on to the consent agenda. Is there any portion of the consent agenda that council wishes to separate? Councilman Spadafino. C? Anything else? Councilman McAvoy?
A, E, and F.
A, E, and F.
And Councilman McAvoy, did you want them separated or just an explanation of them before we voted on block?
An explanation will suffice, and I do believe we can combine C and F if you want to, and A and E. The one is on shared services, and one is on water. Clarification for the public is fine.
And that would be fine with me as far as C also, more of an explanation of what this item is.
Great. Happy to take a run at that. A and E deal with our arrangements with the school board. Over the course of the past several decades, the township, because it has a better tax rating, has been floating bonds for the school board because it costs the taxpayers less, it saves money, and the school board signs an agreement, which is E, to pay us back. A is just a schedule of the payments that we make to the school board because we collect the money for the Board of Education and disperse it throughout the year. With regard to C and F, they deal with water. C, it authorizes an agreement with a co-op from Passaic County to allow East Brunswick and other municipalities and counties to pool their buying power, and it involves things like pipes and equipment that might not be available from the local plumbing supply, but could be available for major water projects, and we get a better price by doing that. And F is just an extension of the water supply agreement. The New Jersey Water Supply Authority, in essence, owns all the water in the state and allocates to everyone who is a municipality or other water purchaser their allocation, and this is renewing our long-term allocation agreement through 2048 so that we have access to satisfactory supply of water.
The warning sign, the red flag that went up for me was the 2048. And as we follow the privatization of water over in Edison Township, and they were looking for a 40-year agreement for privatization of water from this Suez LLC. This is not something that our community has to be alarmed about regarding privatization of water in our township.
Correct, Councilman. This is our agreement with the New Jersey Water Supply Authority so that we have access and control to our water.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mayor.
Mayor?
I just wanted to reiterate that the public is aware that when you look at financial data for the township, which many people do, 2/3 of the township's debt is the shared service arrangements agreements that we have with the Township Board of Education, which is one of the reasons why we have always and have traditionally been able to get such high ratings from the bonding agencies, because our debt ratio is actually quite low if you take out the fact that the bulk of it is actually to help the schools funding by using our great credit rating to get really very good rates.
And then, if I may, Council President, this is simply, no, I take that back. This is not simply. This is a comprehensive move on the part of the mayor to ensure that shared services really works in our community and taxes are stabilized. Thank you, Mayor Cohn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. May I get a motion for items A through J?
Motion approved.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second by Councilman Spadafino. Ms. Perry, please call the roll.
Councilman McAvoy,
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Wendell?
Yes.
Council President Stanley?
Yes. Moving on to ordinances requiring a public hearing date of July 8, 2019. Can I get a motion for the following ordinance 19-18 to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of East Brunswick Township, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 3, Section 80, compensation retainer and non-retainer services of the revised general ordinances of the East Brunswick Township?
Motion approved.
Motion by Councilman Wendell.
Second.
Second by Councilman McAvoy.
Council President, this is just an updating of a ordinance that hasn't really been changed much in over 25 years. It's an attempt to bring it current with the practices in the other communities surrounding us.
Thank you. Mr. Baker. Ms. Perry, please call the roll.
Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Wendell?
Yes.
Council President Stanley?
Yes. May I get a motion for the following ordinance 19-19, authorizing the granting of a long-term tax exemption and the execution of a financial agreement with 39 Edgeboro Road Urban Renewal LLC regarding Block 834, Lot 34.11, 39 Edgeboro Road.
Motion approved.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second by Councilman Spadafino. Any discussion?
I'm happy to update the council members and the public. This is the first time that this governing body, and it's as presently constituted, would be approving what is known as commonly as a pilot agreement, payment in lieu of taxes. It's being done in just about every town that I'm aware of, particularly with regard to large warehouses. In order for towns to compete for business and for ratables, it's pretty much a requirement of how business is done today in the state of New Jersey. This relates to the 500,000 square foot plus or minus warehouse on 39 Edgeboro Road, which is part of the redevelopment area. Under the pilot arrangement, the project would pay less taxes than as regularly taxed, but more taxes than as currently taxed, several hundred thousand, because it's a very small building on a lot currently. The revenues from this, starting at about $750,000 a year, if you can believe that, from one building. Councilman Spadafino and I were talking about that today. It's an amazing amount of taxes from one building. The base would never be lower than $744,000, and it escalates over time, which not every town does, but we do in terms of our negotiations here, would escalate at the end of the 30-year period to about $1.5 million a year in taxes. The municipality keeps 95% of the revenue, and the county gets 5% of the revenue. Now, the school board is not left out. The developer still pays land taxes. Those land taxes are allocated the way that taxes are, with the school board getting about 60% of it in the town, and the county sharing the remainder. So if there are any specific questions, I'm happy to go into further details. The two things in discussing this with Councilman Wendell just before the meeting, on the schedule that's attached, which we probably will simplify when we have to sign the contract, there's a note that says 2% administrative fee to the township. The redevelopment agency has requested that 2% fee, about $14,000 a year, go to the redevelopment agency in order to help fund the redevelopment agency. That's $14,000 less than that they have to ask you for in each budget cycle. So that would be a suggested revision to the schedule. And the other is that we're very close, I think, to a negotiating of a redevelopment agreement with Mr. Hughes's effort and with counsel for the redevelopment agency. And Councilman Wendell suggested that the language be added to the financial agreement that says it will become effective upon the execution of a redevelopment agreement, so that we don't get the pilot out in front of the redevelopment agreement and we keep the two tied together.
Any questions? Councilman McAvoy?
I'd like to go on record thanking our attorney for his professionalism with regard to land use litigation. I feel that he is an expert in this area, and all of the work that you put in to get this completed, Mr. Baker, thank you very much. Council President?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Ms. Barrett, please call the roll.
Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilman Wendell.
Yes.
Council President Stanley.
Yes. Moving on to ordinance 19-20, can I get a motion for the following? Providing of various school capital improvements in and by the Township of East Brunswick in the County of Middlesex, New Jersey pursuant to the shared service agreements with the East Brunswick Board of Education appropriating $16,600,000 thereof and authorizing the
Actually,
issuance...
14, I'm sorry,
14?
It's
14,600,000.
14 million?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll give them
Appropriating $14,600,000 thereof and authorizing the issuance of $13,870,000 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof. Can I get a motion?
Motion adopted.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Spadafino.
This is a bond ordinance, as we discussed earlier, to help out the school system with their capital improvements to many of their facilities. A lot of the improvements will be at Churchill Junior High School, and including some work at the actual high school itself on the sports lighting and so on the athletic fields, and also some security systems. So this is the first reading for the bond ordinance. So once it's passed, they can go out and actually purchase these products and so on, and we can do the financing for them.
Great, thank you, sir. Ms. Barrett, any questions?
Mayor has a question.
Mayor.
Yeah, I also wanted to add, in addition with the bonding that we've been doing for the school, helping them out, they've generally been 5-year notes, and they pay their bonds back in 5 years, and so it becomes a revolving type, almost like a revolving line of credit, because as they retire debt, they replace it. So we're almost acting like an intermediary for the bank, really, for them. But we obviously have the collateral. You have the money that we pay them every single month, that if we ever didn't have them pay back, we just take it from what we're supposed to be giving them. So it actually is a very good relationship, and but it's not bonds that we're carrying out 20, 30 years. They're generally and have consistently been 5-year notes.
Thank you, Mayor Cohen. And that, you know, if a red flag went up on a couple of years with regard to Mr. Hughes, once again, when we talk about millions of dollars, 16 million, no, it's 14 million. We throw around sometimes money like it's a Monopoly game, but you clarified for the community exactly what they needed to hear, that it is a 5-year note, and it will be paid in full before another one of these
Correct.
appears before us to, coining your words, help them out, helping out the community as a whole, because this is another example of how the two governing bodies work together.
I think
Thank you,
it's
Council
we
President.
calculated it at one point, saves the taxpayers somewhere around $200,000 a year just in financing costs, and that's over a tax point, so it is not insignificant. So
That's important.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Perry, please call the roll.
Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilman Wendell.
Yes.
Council President Stanley.
Yes. Moving on to the good of the cause. Does anyone have anything for the good of the cause?
Need a motion to go into.
Remember the 4th
I'll
of
make a
July.
motion.
Yes.
Right, when is the monument?
The
This
what?
week, the monument at, the,
Oh, yes, there's a tribute tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock at the Community Arts Center for the 11 victims of the Tree of Life killing in Pittsburgh about 6 months ago now. And that is a combination of the township contributing trees in honor of the 11 victims, and then the 4 shuls in town who have contributed to a monument. That'll be placed on the grounds outside of the Community Arts Center, and that tribute will be tomorrow at 7 o'clock, and an unveiling of that monument. Thanks for reminding me.
Council President, I beg your pardon, were we in the good of the cause?
Yeah, we're still in the good of the cause. Anyone else? Okay, I guess.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. The first shout out is for our crossing guards. I had the habit of this past week, because of my professional retirement, I have a lot of time on my hands, so made my way as a representative of this governing body to a number of crossing guards, and personally just gave them a shout out to say how thankful we were keeping our children safe, because that's what they do. And I don't know that they hear it enough. But as they go on vacation for the summer, they can get recharged for September. As many of you know, and some are now learning, this past week we lost one of the greatest teachers in the entirety of East Brunswick High School, Mr. John Calamano. I had the pleasure of working with Cal, as he was affectionately and professionally known, and knew him outside the boundaries of the school on the hilltop. John would often quote Emerson, and now I have a quote for you, Cal. To leave the world a bit better, whether it be a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know that even one life has breathed easier because of you, know that you have succeeded. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Michael, I don't know what's going on today. I'm stuck today.
Birthday. You're older.
I don't know what's going on today.
Getting a
I'm
little
like,
foggy in your old age, huh?
getting older there.
Need a motion to go into closed?
Yes, can I get a motion?
Motion to go into closed session.
Closed session for contract and personal matters.
Second.
Action will be taken after the closed session.
You need a motion?
Motion, second,
Yep,
we go into closed session.
okay.
Can I get a motion for the following? 16634, resolution authorizing the execution of employment contract with Frank Saka to serve as the Township Police Chief.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Councilman Bell, second by Councilman Scarpino.
Can we have some discussion real quick? I just got something to say. Listen, I've known Frank for better part of 25 or 30 years. And I will say, I don't know if this is something that's actually making history here, but I don't know if he's the first officer ever that's graduated from East Brunswick High School to be promoted to chief. But I'm proud to say that our new chief, and thank, our chief currently built a nice department, but I'm proud to know and have comfort in the fact that our chief is a graduate of East Brunswick High School, is a resident of East Brunswick, and he's a true green and white guy. So
Go Bears.
there you go.
Okay. Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Wendell?
Yes,
Council President Stanley?
Yes.
congratulations.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
No,
Was that a yes?
no, I have new business.
Oh, where are you throwing new business? Okay, go for it.
I've been following certain things in the news lately and also around the state. And I believe that it's time to open a dialogue here on eliminating the use of unrecyclable plastics in the township, especially plastic bags. Many of us have had many experiences. Every year I'm cleaning out the leaves from under my shrubs, and there's plastic bags. And I look around the trees around town, and floating like ghosts in the wind, there's plastic bags. And before Memorial Day, when there was very few people around, my wife and I went walking on the boardwalk down at Seaside Park, went out and sat on the beach. It was a beautiful day, and here were plastic bags rolling along like tumbleweeds. And I'm saying to myself, if this is how it is now, and we don't do something to put a stop to this, then 20 years from now, when I may be gone, these bags are going to just multiply like jellyfish. And also what they're doing to the environment, I think, is a travesty. And I think that there's better alternatives. There's things that can be done. And a lot of towns are stepping up to try to send a message to the state that we want something done wholesale in the state of New Jersey for the betterment of the population in the future. Right now, there's 17 municipalities that have passed ordinances to control the use of single-use plastics. The whole county of Atlantic County has made an ordinance to ban single-use plastics, and there are 12 municipalities that have pending ordinances. The closest one, Highland Park, has passed an ordinance controlling single-use plastics. Some people say that the use of those plastics is necessary because it saves trees, but that's not really true. Everyone knows that a lot of paper bags are made from recycled wood. Also, it has become very well known that a use for hemp plants is to be able to utilize those plants in order to make paper bags, and that they are a renewable source, and also that they produce 25% more oxygen per acre than an acre of trees. So those people that think we need plastic bags are terribly wrong. Also, the thing about it is that East Brunswick's always been on the cutting edge of health and environmental issues. And I think that it's very important that we follow through and be a strong voice to send a message to a state to let them know that we need a statewide control of single-use plastics.
Thank you, Councilman. Mayor?
Councilman, I want to thank you for bringing that up. It actually has been an issue that we have been working on, and was one of the main reasons, actually, that I had requested volunteers in the town to be part of a sustainability committee. The sustainability committee is basically a subcommittee of our environmental commission, and their role is to help implement any of the projects that would help provide us an opportunity to move up on the Sustainable New Jersey list of ways to provide the type of environment that you're talking about. And they get points for a whole bunch of different categories, but among them are things like eliminating single-use plastic bags, styrofoam, plastic straws. So the committee has been meeting, and they actually are in the process of helping us towards putting together 3 ordinances, which we will be bringing to the council within the next couple of weeks. And they are for those 3 specific areas: single-use plastic bags, for plastic straws, and for styrofoam. It was actually even further proof that we were in the right direction when I had 2 fifth-grade girls write me letters from Warnsdorfer who were complaining that in the school system they're learning about recycling and about sustainability and about being good caretakers of the earth, and yet they stare at the garbage right at Warnsdorfer, where they threw out the styrofoam containers that they had and the plastic utensils that they have, and they just couldn't understand how hypocritical it was that the schools who are teaching them how to be good stewards of the earth are actually some of the biggest polluters, and that what they could do to try to help move them in the right direction. So if the 5th graders even see it, then we need to do something. It's their future that's at stake. So we have every intention of bringing to the council those 3 ordinances, and what we've actually asked the Sustainability Committee to do is that in advance of bringing any type of ordinance to the council, they need to accomplish 2 things with those ordinances. One, they need to provide all of the opposition research, because the minute you start talking about banning anything, you have people all of a sudden coming out of the woodwork saying how paper bags are just as bad, and all the car companies that say that the electric cars are using just as much carbon emissions as, and it's just not true. And so at some point it becomes fake news, and we really need to be able to provide the opposition research to combat that before people start coming out and complaining that we're on the wrong track. And the second thing that they need to do is they need to provide to the businesses, the restaurants, the stores in the community who will be affected the most by that, an opportunity to educate them on alternatives that they could be utilizing. Many of the big stores already operate in different parts of the country. They already have had to deal with these type of ordinances in those towns, so they already know what to do. Many restaurants just need to be given advice on places and alternatives that they could purchase products that they could give out that is biodegradable. And it's an opportunity for them to use up some of the stock that they already have, that they've already paid for. So it wouldn't be fair to ask them to take a hit on the stock they've already ordered. So there would have to be a period of time before which it would be implemented. But there has to be a point in time where once you hit that point, the ordinance is in place, and there's a penalty for not following it. And I agree. I think that over time, enough communities start doing it, then either other communities will voluntarily do it, or the state will just come in and make it a mandate for the entire state. But I didn't want you to think, since you were on that track, that we haven't already started addressing the issue, and I expect very soon for this council to be looking at some of those ordinances and trying to see if it's something that we can implement right here in East Brunswick and do exactly what you said, to be the town that's on the leading edge of change instead of the follower.
I'll be looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I have a question for you? As far as research is concerned, is the committee researching into towns that have already established these ordinances?
Yes, we'll
And
be.
what they have done as far as the businesses are concerned, how they approach the businesses and how, what kind of leeway?
Yeah, that's why we didn't want to come in and have an ordinance for you to just say yes to. We want to make sure that the business community in town that we very much support is on board. They have educational opportunities, chances to work on and learn what alternatives are available, and that's the things that I really needed this committee to be working on. There's a million different ordinances that we could pick from. That's not the hard work. The hard work is doing the research on the opposition and being ready for it, because it will come, and to prepare businesses in a business-friendly manner so that they can have every opportunity to alter all their choices and make it so that they can find it very easy to comply.
And if there are any residents who wish to add their thoughts or maybe help out this committee, how would they go about it?
They can contact the mayor's office, and we'd be more than happy to allow them to serve on the Sustainability Committee.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mike,
Motion
good?
to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay.
Second.
Second?
All in
All in
favor?
favor?
All right.
Have a good night, everybody.